welcome to the Big East Men's Basketball Coaches Media Teleconference. Today's conference is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to turn the conference over to John Paquette. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for joining us on our Men's Basketball Coaches Teleconference. We'll have each coach on for approximately 8 minutes. After an opening statement from the coach, you'll be able to ask questions. Hit *1 on your telephone, and the operator will introduce you. First up, we have Coach Greg McDermott of Creighton. Creighton's last game was on Tuesday. They defeated Xavier 70-56. Blue Jays now 7-5 in the Big East, 16-9 overall. They're on the road on Saturday at Marquette. Greg, thanks for joining us on the call. If you could give us a brief comment on the win over Xavier and then your thoughts on facing Marquette.
Well, it goes without saying Xavier was a huge win for our program, given their body of work to this point in the season. And, I don't think either team shot it as good as we're capable of shooting it, but I think the opposing defenses also had something to do with that. So, you hope to be playing meaningful games in February, and that was certainly a meaningful game for us. And because we were able to get a win of that magnitude, it makes Saturday's game meaningful as well. And Marquette is coming off a big win against Providence last night. Henry Ellenson was outstanding as he's been all season, and obviously they're playing with some pretty good mojo right now. So it'll be a heck of a challenge for us. But compared to where we sat a year ago, to be able to move forward to the point where it's mid-February and our games mean something is a good step for our program.
Questions for Coach Greg McDermott. Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you. *1 on your telephone, please.
We'll now take a question from John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach. Hope all is well.
It is. Thank you, John.
Just a matter of hard to believe, but not too far away from the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden, and focusing on that angle of things, asking coaches today about their experiences at MSG. Your first year in the conference, you made the championship game against Providence. It was, really an outstanding crowd, an outstanding moment. When you walk into Madison Square Garden, when you're coaching in that arena, what comes to your mind? What's so special about it?
Well, it's the mecca of basketball in terms of facilities that you could have an opportunity to play in, and it's an incredible experience for our players and our fans to be able to host our tournament there. I think separates us from a lot of conferences across the country because it is the place where everybody would like to play. So, it was a terrific experience for us 2 years ago to get to the championship, and obviously we're disappointed we came up short. And, we had a good win last year in the first round and lost a close game to Georgetown in the second round. So we've played some pretty good basketball there, and I know our guys are excited to get back out there this year. And the way the league is shaping up, I think there could be some strange things happen in New York City this year.
And we'll go now to Matt Velasquez with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Good morning, Coach.
Hi, Matt.
With this being your first game against Marquette of the season, what do you think are some inherent advantages and disadvantages of playing a team for the first time so late in the conference season?
Well, we're doing it twice this week because it was our first round with Xavier Tuesday night as well. So it's a little rare because usually, by this time of the year when you're going through a scouting report, it's more of a review and maybe you're going to tweak what you did the first time. But it's brand new, and so it's been it's a mental grind of a week for our guys to have to put together a plan for Xavier that's brand new, and now flip the page and get ready for Marquette. But the reality of it is they have to do the same thing, and I've just been really impressed. Obviously, they're a very young basketball team, and to watch where they've grown from the beginning of the season to where they are today. Wojo's obviously done a terrific job, he and his staff, and those young players certainly aren't playing like freshmen anymore.
All right, thanks, Coach.
And there are no additional questions at this time.
Any other questions for Coach McDermott? Hit *1 on your telephone, please. All right, Greg, looks like we're up.
I apologize.
Yeah.
Yes, it does appear we have a question from Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Greg, how are you?
Doing great.
Hey, can you talk a little bit about Maurice? I mean, he's been very solid all year, but having a breakout game like the other night, has he surpassed your expectations for what you thought you were going to get from him in the first year?
You know, when we recruited him, you watch him in his games at Boston University. He gets in the lane and he finishes a variety of ways. I think there was part of me that wondered, against the shot blocking and length and size that he's going to face in the Big East, will he be able to do that? And to his credit, he has. He's very good at getting into the paint, putting his shoulder in the shot blocker's chest, and being able to finish with both hands in a variety of ways. He's very creative when he gets to the basket, and he's improved as a shooter to the point where you have to respect it. He's been a good foul shooter, and obviously his assist to turnover ratio has been good as well. So, he's really the engine that makes us go, and I couldn't be more pleased with where he's at, at this point during his junior season.
Okay, thanks, Greg.
You bet. Thank you.
Hang on, Greg. I'm sorry. We have one more call if you can take it.
Yep.
We'll now take a question from David Woods with Indianapolis Star.
Yes, Coach. It's been a while since you played Butler, but Keelan Martin had one especially exceptional half against you guys, and he's been playing really well lately. When you see him on film, what do you notice?
Well, he can make difficult shots. You can guard him in what you may think is pretty well, and he can pop up and make a shot with a hand in his face. And, I saw just a little bit of their game last night before I flipped over to the Marquette game, and just was, really impressed with the way Butler's playing right now. They played with a confidence and a swagger early in the season, and they had a very difficult start to the conference schedule in terms of who they played and where they had to play them, and I think anybody who would have had to play that schedule probably would have had similar results. And they've gotten through that, and they're playing with tremendous amount of confidence. Obviously, Tyler Lewis is back, so it's given them a little bit more depth in the guard court. But I've been incredibly impressed with him. I think he's one of the more improved players in the league from a year ago that nobody's really talking about how much he's improved. So, you put him next to Roosevelt and Dunham, and you've got three guys that are really capable of beating you in a variety of ways.
Thank you.
All right, Greg, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, that's Creighton at Marquette this Saturday. Next up, we have Coach Ed Cooley from Providence. Providence was at Marquette last night. Marquette came away with a double overtime win, 96-91. Friars back at home this Saturday against Georgetown, noon tip-off on Fox. Ed, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us a brief comment on last night's game and then your thoughts on Saturday's matchup with Georgetown.
Well, last night's game, was a hard-fought game. Came up short. It almost played identical to the game we played here in Rhode Island. We made some critical mistakes down the stretch. They made some big-time plays. We're looking forward to a tough Georgetown team. We played them a couple of weeks ago, so we're pretty familiar with them as they are with us. Trying to get back on the winning side here. We've lost a couple in a row here, and want to make sure our kids are in a good place. So our preparation and our attitudes are going to be important as we approach these last couple of games here at our home court.
Questions for Coach Ed Cooley? Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
We'll take our first question from Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Ed.
Steve, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, when you look at the overall improvement Ben has made since a year ago, I guess where does it rank as far as maybe players you coached? And what's the best thing he's doing better now than he did a year ago?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, he ranks right up there. I mean, when you just look at his statistical numbers, I mean, he's made one of the biggest jumps, in a long time that somebody in our league has done. Bryce Cotton would be a close second to that. He's in great shape. He's really, really confident. I think he's playing with some guys that know his game and know his game well. And he's just, he's a tough matchup because he can play inside out. And he's just got a level of confidence that he just feels like he's a great basketball player, and that really helps him, So we hope he can continue to improve. But, I mean, his ascension in college basketball has been really, really remarkable to see.
He's playing alongside a guy that a lot of people thought was probably Player of the Year caliber in the league. I guess when you look at what Ben's done, is he Player of the Year caliber?
I mean, there are a lot of players in our league, that could arguably be put into that category, up and down the rosters. He's playing like a really great player in our league. Is he the Player of the Year? I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, those are for the other coaches to vote on. But he's playing at a level that we need him to play at, and we need him to exceed that in order for us to try to get, our next win, because we don't know where that's coming from.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
We'll now go to John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Coach, hope all is well. Hard to believe that the Big East tournament is only a matter of weeks away at this point.
Sure.
You won the Big East tournament 2 years ago at the Garden, and just talking about that scene again as the tournament nears. Describe to me what it was like to win the tournament, and when you're at the Mecca, what comes to mind?
Well, I've been in the Big East a long time, and, going back from the Boston College days to every time you go to New York City to play in the Big East tournament, it is the event. It is some teams that come in there and surprise you. There's some teams that come there and don't perform as well as they want to. You get everybody's best shot. Everybody's prepared. It is the event to me in college basketball. It's an envious place where people want to be, want to go, want to participate. The energy around the city, trying to get shoot-around times in different buildings. Our kids are really, really excited to go there and play and participate. I think for our league, with this year's, how you see the league is this year, it is as wide open as any year we've had. So I think everybody's going to have an opportunity to go there and have some success. It's a great place to be, but that's down the line. The Friars got to worry about the Hoyers coming in here on Saturday.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck Saturday.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Coach Ed Cooley? Please hit *1 on your telephone.
We'll take our next question from Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Ed, could you talk about how the Big East, it's such a minefield, with teams bunched together. I think just 2 wins separate third place from 8th place. Can you talk about the grind of going night in, night out in this conference?
Well, it's what we all envisioned when the Big East was reconfigured. No nights off, and a lot of coaches have that in cliche and in sport. But when you look at our league, you got to lace them up every night. The home courts of the energy in the buildings is great. The officiating is great. The coaching is great. It's coming down to 1-2 possessions. So you're talking about late game situations. You're talking about details, focus. It's a great league. It's a lot of fun. Very, very demanding. Very physical. Really fast, and really good players. So it's a great time of the year, and couldn't be more proud to be part of the Big East.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Anything else for Coach Cooley? Ed, we appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before we're reaching out to Coach Dave Lato from DePaul now. A note on Ben Bento last night. He had 42 points. That's the 6th highest total in a regular season game over the last 10 seasons. This is regular season Big East play. and it's also the highest scoring total in a game since Doug McDermott got 45 2 years ago against Providence in the regular season finale in the 13-14 season. So sixth highest total in the regular season in the last 10 years, and the highest since Doug McDermott scored 45 2 seasons ago against Providence. Now we're moving on to Coach Dave Lato at DePaul. DePaul's last game was a loss to Villanova on Tuesday. Blue Demons are off this weekend. The next game is on the 17th at St. John's at Carnesecca Arena. Dave, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us a brief comment on your team's play of late, and then your plans for your team leading up to next week's game.
Yes, obviously we are just coming off of the Villanova game, and one of the things when you're playing an excellent team anytime, anywhere is you need just about everything to go your way, and obviously the things that Villanova are going through, and just being named number one team in the country the first time in the school's history meant a lot. But even beyond that, playing a team that's so balanced and so experienced and so well coached was a challenge. And I don't think we played particularly well, but I think they had a lot to do with it at the same point in time. So that being said, we have 8 days to at this time of year, which is a little bit odd, but it's probably comes at a good time because we can get our bodies a little bit more healthy and take some time to kind of readjust and get ready for the last few weeks of our regular season. So we'll huddle up and we took a day off and now kind of work on us a little bit more as opposed to preparing for a weekend game, and hopefully that will give us a little bit more of a foundational base and getting back to basics so that when we play during the middle of the week at St. John's, we'll be physically prepared as well as mentally.
Questions for Coach Dave Lato. Hit star 1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you. Hit star 1, please, on your telephone.
We'll take our first question from Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Dave.
Sean.
Hey, you were the first Big East team to face Villanova as the number one team, and irregardless of the outcome, is it a good thing for the conference to have the number one team in the country as a member of your conference, and does that kind of even enhance the prestige a little bit for it?
I can't come up with anything that would make it bad. I mean, this league is for the short term and the newness of the new Big East, if you want to call it that, and the long term of what the trademark of what the Big East stands for is synonymous with the greatest quality basketball in college. And to have a team that represents the best team in the country right now it draws so much positive attention to not only Villanova but the quality of the teams in this league. And I think we have done that. We continue to do that. Teams continue to perform well, and the more you perform, sometimes what happens at this juncture of the season is that good teams knock off good teams, and sometimes that can be construed as negative. But it speaks to the depth of the teams in this league. And so when you have all of that, but yet and still you can talk about having the number one team in the country, I think it draws some great attention to Villanova and what they are doing and what they have done as a program, and as well as because their record is so good, some of the teams that have competed well and that they've beaten in league play. So I think it's all good.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
And we'll now take a question from John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach, hard to believe the Big East tournament is just a matter of a few weeks away, and I wanted to talk to you today about just your memories of the Garden in your first stint at DePaul and how much you're looking forward to being back at the Mecca now here in 2016.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And, obviously from a personal standpoint, I've got a tremendous amount of memories and the times that from start to finish. When my first Big East tournament was as an 8-9, if you remember the old 8-9 game, participant, which it was something that you always tried to avoid, but that had significance because, it was Connecticut and Boston College for a couple of years there where they were at the bottom level of the Big East and looking up at St. John's and Georgetown and Villanova with all great coaches and great teams. And so that was initially, but then, as you fast forward and as the program was built, my last Big East tournament was a championship, and so all the memories, all the great games, all of the things that have happened, both good and bad, are something that goes with the essence, the pageantry, and the success of the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. And when you're walking up into it and you can smell the peanuts roasting on the outside of the building, and you walk through the halls of the garden, and then you step onto the court and you perform. There's no player, there's no coach, there's no manager, there's no anybody, especially fans, that don't enjoy it to the nth degree. And so as I come back here to DePaul as a member of the Big East, it invokes all of those memories, and it sounds like deja vu all over again, to coin a Yogi Berra term, because we're at a place where I first started at Connecticut, where we're down below looking up, and we've got to build this thing so that we return back to championship level play as we did as I was an assistant at Connecticut.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Coach Dave Lato? It looks like we're good. Thanks as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, DePaul is off this weekend, and their next game is February 17th at St. John's at Carnesecca Arena. Next up, we have Butler and Coach Chris Holtman. Butler played last night at Seton Hall and came away with an 81-75 win. Butler now 6-6 in the league. They've won their last three, 17-7 overall. Next game is home against Xavier on Fox at 2:30 Eastern. Chris, thanks for joining us on the call. If you could give us a brief comment on last night's game and then your thoughts moving forward against Xavier.
Yeah, my pleasure. I think first and foremost, we beat a really good Seton Hall team last night, and I think you look at what they've done this year and how Kevin has them playing. As I mentioned last night, it just they're a terrific team, and they've got really good talent. You could tell they really enjoy playing together. I think they're elite defensively. So to win on the road against such a quality opponent was good. We have a very, very quick turnaround against a terrific Xavier team. So our preparation has started immediately for that one.
Questions for Coach Chris Holtman. Hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
We'll now take a question from Tom Davis with Fort Wayne News Sentinel.
Morning, Coach, and congratulations.
Hey, Tom. Thank you.
It's a long season. A lot of teams have been practicing since September or at least early October. And I noticed in the stat sheet last night, you didn't get to your bench a lot, but you did some. What is your process in balancing? You have to win games, but it's a long season, and you also got to give guys some rest. So each game that you're in, how do you balance that?
It's from game to game. You're trying to get a feel for some of it's fatigue, some of it's foul trouble, some of it's the pace of the game, some of it's matchups. Does this particular player coming off the bench match up better against this opponent? In some cases, that's not always the case. I think we played 9 guys last night. I think it was 9. In some cases, we'll play 10, but it's hard to go too far beyond 10 guys this time of year. Most people have already trimmed their rotation. Our rotation has actually probably increased the last few weeks. So, you're just looking at it game to game, really.
All right. And what you mentioned that you've expanded your bench recently. One of those guys is Jackson Davis, who's played more minutes. What are you seeing from him that warrants him getting more minutes of late?
Yeah, he needs to come in, and I think he's done a good job of impacting the game in playing to his strengths. And a couple of these games he's gotten a little bit of foul trouble, which is limited his time. But I think Jackson has done a great job at understanding how he can impact the game possession by possession, and been pleased with that. And out of that has come some more consistent minutes. So, I've been really pleased with Jackson. He's done a good job for us here late.
In resting guys, do you often think? Do you take the approach that, look, they're going to have to play like Kellen and Rose? They're going to have to play 38 minutes. That's just the way it is. So we're going to give them rest like today or tomorrow, or shorten practices, or give a day off. Is it a matter of on game nights they're just not going to get rest, but on the other times they can get rest? Do you take that approach?
Yeah. Well, I think you're if we had perhaps if we had guys that were averaging 25 minutes a game versus upwards of 32, 33, 34, that might be different. But yeah, I think everybody this time of year is mindful of your guys' rest, your mental and physical fatigue. So there's no question that we monitor that as closely as we can monitor it. And we got back late last night, so we'll need to keep a close eye on that today in our preparation for Xavier.
All right. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
We'll take our next question from David Woods with Indianapolis Star.
Yes. Good morning, Coach. I got to wonder, you've got probably two of the better sophomore forwards, not only in the Big East but in the country, with Trevin Blewett and Keelan Martin. I mean, you may not have been involved in that recruiting process, but did you end up getting Keelan at a time that Blewett was still being recruited by Butler?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe their commitments were somewhere around the same time. David, that was I think first couple months on the job here for myself, but I believe they were a couple months, couple weeks right around the same time, and the staff that was here, Brandon and Michael Lewis, did a great job recruiting Keelan, and obviously we were involved with Trayvon as well. He's a terrific player and just a terrific talent and a tough kid and really good offensively, and obviously both players are having very good sophomore years.
They say basketball players are made in the summer, and it seems like all the work that Keelan did over the summer really is manifesting itself here now in late January and February.
Well, as I've mentioned to you, he put in his time now, and I would, if that was not the case, I wouldn't say it. Mm-hmm. That's not the case for every player, across the country. He put in his time, and he changed his body to what we hoped he would change his body, and most importantly, I think, David, he's begun to learn how to impact the game in other ways. He has to continue to learn that. He has to have an impact on the defensive end and on the glass for us, and he has to continue to understand what's our team's best shot. And he's really grown in those areas, and it's a credit to his work that he's put in, dating back to the summer.
Yeah, sometimes it seems like you'll even assign him to, one of the other team's best offensive players, and depending on the matchups, and that just would have been unthinkable 12 months ago.
Well, there's no question it's a role he's growing into. I think some of that is, for our team to be good with what we lost with Alex and Cam, he has to grow in that area, just because of we don't have many other options, and I think it's important for him. He's big, and he's really begun to play, I think, with more of with a smart approach defensively. But he understands he's got to continue. He's got to continue to grow in those areas. He's still got a ways to go.
Okay, thank you.
We'll now go to Joe Giuliano with the Philadelphia Inquirer.
Good morning, Chris. I'd
Joe.
like to ask you about Roosevelt Jones. Obviously, he does everything on the court and more. Is there one specific area, either on the court or off the court, that makes him, even more special than he is than what he shows us, game to game?
I think Roosevelt he has a special way about him as a player and as a person. I think he's got a charisma that is just he's a fun kid to be around. I think with Roosevelt, as you're coaching guys, you love to coach those guys where you have to say one thing to them to challenge them in an important moment, and immediately their level is going to get ratcheted up to the highest level. And to be honest with Roosevelt, when the game is at its most competitive moments, he's at his best. But I think his greatest strength has always been his will and his competitiveness.
Great, thank you, Chris.
We'll take one more question for Coach Chris Holtmann.
We'll go now to Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Morning, Chris.
Hi, Steve.
Hey, obviously the start of conference play was a little rocky for you guys. Could you just speak to the resiliency this group has shown at kind of navigating its way through the first two-thirds?
Well, I think that as I mentioned, and we've talked about, if we don't have that approach, we're not ready to play in a power league, in a big boy league, in one of the very best leagues in the country. I just think that is a requirement. If you're going to try to be successful in a power league, you have to have some inner stuff, and you have to have some perspective to you. And they keep coming at you. Listen, last night was great, but our minds immediately turned to a team that I think can be a Final Four team and win. I think Xavier can win a national championship. I think they're that talented and that well put together. So they just keep coming at you in this league, and if you don't have some inner stuff to you, then you're not ready to play in this caliber of a league, which I think is one of the very best in the country.
Thanks, Chris. See you next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Chris, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. We are moving on to St. John's and Coach Chris Mullen. St. John's last game was a loss down at Georgetown on Monday. They're back on the road on Saturday at Villanova. It's an 8 p.m. tip at Wells Fargo, CBS Sports Network. Chris, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us maybe a general comment of your team's play of late and talk about the matchup with Villanova.
Last two games, I think, have been a little bit lackluster for us. We played pretty good basketball, believe it or not, through this losing streak. But the last two games, I thought a little tentative and not decisive. So we're looking forward to bounce back on Saturday against Villanova.
Questions for Coach Chris Mullen. Hit star 1 on your telephone, then the operator will introduce you. Star 1 for questions, please.
We'll take a question from John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach, hope all is well. With the Big East tournament a couple weeks away, obviously one of the best parts of your job is that, you get to coach now at the Garden, and you played there, and you were the MVP of the Big East tournament back in 1983. We're looking around the league with talking to coaches about the championship, and now being a coach on the sidelines, whereas at one point you were a player. Explain the differences in the feel of the Mecca, and just whenever you walk in the Garden, what comes to mind?
Total opposite ends of the spectrum as far as playing and coaching. Playing is the best part of your life. After that, you got to find something that comes, in the same neighborhood. It's hard to find something to match playing. But coaching is fun. Coaching is a whole different ball game, a whole different perspective on things, and but as far as there is no comparison in my mind between playing and coaching. Being at the Garden is always special. Any player, any coach at any level, that's the place they want to perform. They want to perform well. So, and it's always been like that. The history in that building goes way beyond basketball, and it's a special place. And so it's always nice to be able to, coach a game, play a game, watch a game, watch a concert, watch a boxing match, whatever it may be. That's the center of sports.
Do you have to say much to your guys, about playing in that building? I know that you kind of said, you don't like to share too much about your playing days. You want them to experience it their own. But have you talked about, that building as your season's gone on when you guys have had some big time matchups there?
Well, we got all new guys, a lot of guys from out of the country, so that's something they've had to experience themselves. But I think as soon as you play one game there, or even the first 5 minutes, you get the feel that it's a little different. And when I was a kid, Coach Carnesec always stressed to us, that you're going on stage, and the importance of practicing to be ready to perform on the world's most famous arena. That's where it's at. Once you get there, if you didn't put your work in, you're going to get exposed. So it's really about the preparation to be able to perform on the biggest stage, and that's something that all great players, all great teams do. They take pride in their practice and their preparation. So when you show up at Madison Square Garden or whatever it might be, you're able to perform. That's really the most important part. As far as each guy has to experience themselves. Even NBA players that come in the first time they've ever been there, there's a little adjustment period there for a few minutes. But like I said, if you fall back on your preparation and your day-to-day habits, really doesn't matter where you're playing.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll now take a question from Howie Kasoy with New York Post.
Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. I just wanted to ask you, you guys, last time you met Villanova, first half you were right with them. It was a 1-point game. Now you go there this weekend. Because of the way that game went, and because, I guess, of the way the season has been going, can you talk to the guys about kind of embracing this opportunity of just going at the number one team in the country that, despite all that's gone wrong, you have a chance to pull something off that could be historic?
Yeah, we've kind of approached each game that way, to tell you the truth. We haven't been probably, in most people's eyes, going into games expected to win many games this year. So, I always talk about it's an opportunity, but that opportunity only comes if you play hard, play unselfish, play with good energy, mentally focused on our game plan, knowing the personnel. Then you give yourself a chance to seize that opportunity. So that's really gets back to the same thing I was talking about, is the preparation is so important leading up to the game. Then the game, you want to just go play. But you have to put the work in, and, mentally and physically, to let yourself play free. So that's really the biggest thing. Yeah, whether you rank number 1, number 6, whatever that number is, to me doesn't really, doesn't really matter that much. It's still an opportunity to go out there, in some eyes upset somebody, but probably more importantly, show progress, show, unselfish play with your teammates, growth of young guys. To me, probably the biggest thing is trying to get a little deeper in the second half and be, put a little pressure on that team and see what they're made of.
Thanks.
And we'll now take a question from David Woods from Indianapolis Star.
Yes, good morning, Coach. Butler had a pretty balanced attack against you guys over the weekend, but Keelan Martin performed well and has really performed well a lot recently. Do you see him as someone who one of those guys who might have an NBA future at the end of 4 college seasons?
Yeah, I like his game. I think he's well-rounded, has a nice feel for the game. I think he can probably can play multiple positions the way the league is now. So I do think, from what I've seen from the 2 games we've played, I do like his game. And a lot depends on, how he grows, matures, more that grows, matures, and works on his game. But I was impressed with him.
Okay, thank you.
We'll take one final question for Coach Chris Mullin. One final question.
We'll now go to Terrence Payne with Fox Sports.
Hey, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you.
I think one of the interesting things about your team is just how many countries are represented on the roster. What have the pros and cons been to having a team with so many languages and cultures and playing styles?
I think the pros are their attitude. They're really good kids. They're team oriented. They're hard workers. Great teammates. Probably the only downside is they're all young. I do think there's somewhat of a language barrier during the game. I think that's more because they're young and they all speak English. But I just think in game, they're just all out there together at times with no experience. So whoever they turn to doesn't really have not even the answer to look on their face that they've been there before. So that's something that we just have to, work through. But as far as the makeup of their character and their work ethic, the way they conduct themselves, they've been a treat. So I love all those international guys. I think we're very fortunate to have them, especially, getting in so late when we did, to be able to just get a roster together in a few hours. I think we're very fortunate.
Thanks.
Chris, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
We're moving on to Coach Kevin Willard at Seton Hall. Seton Hall played last night. Butler came away with an 81-75 win. Seton Hall now off until the 17th at Georgetown. The Pirates are 7-5 and 17-7 overall. Kevin, thanks for joining us. If you want to give us a comment on last night's game and then your thoughts on the preparation for next week.
I thought last night Butler played really well. I think the 3 guys of Martin, Dunham, and Roosevelt, are really playing at a high level right now. And the guy that's really not getting talked about a lot, Andrew Travis, is playing fantastic. He's really being I think he's playing very unselfish basketball. I think he's adding a dimension to their team on the offensive end that's really making them difficult to defend. And as far as this week, we're gonna enjoy a couple days off and recharge our batteries and get ready for a tough last 6 games.
Questions for Kevin Willard, hit *1 on your telephone, please.
We'll go now to Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
Hey, when you look at the improvement Isaiah Whitehead's made from a year ago to this year, what's been the biggest area where you've seen growth in his game?
I think the biggest thing with Isaiah has been his maturity, the way he approaches the game now. I think that's been his biggest step. He's always been an extremely hard worker. He's great in practice. He practices terrific every day. I think the biggest thing is, when things weren't going his way in the past, he had tendencies, to force things and not play as well. Where now, if he has a bad 2-minute stretch, he understands that he's got 38 more minutes to play, and he's just doing a really good job of understanding the maturity that he needs to play with at the point guard spot, and he's playing really good basketball.
Speaking of another guy who made a big step, Providence's Ben Bentil has really raised the level of his game. When you look back on film and watch him from a year ago, where's big areas of improvement in him?
So I just need to yeah, Bentil's he's a man-child right now. I'll tell you that much. I think the biggest thing with Ben, he's always a great rebounder. I think the biggest thing is he's hitting outside shots on a very consistent basis, and it's really making him tough to defend. He really improved his range. He could make a 16, 15-footer last year, but with Henton at the 4, I don't think they didn't need him to shoot as much. Now, he's just expanded his range, and it makes it tough with all the pick and rolls they run with Dunn. He's playing at an extremely high level.
Player of the year, league player of the year.
Yeah, he's getting up there. We still got 6 games left.
Right.
You got to feel there's a lot of guys you can throw in there. I think I think all the coaches are going to have a hard time this year picking that, because this league is talented with so many great players who are playing at an extremely high level. I mean, you can throw Josh Hart, Chris Dunn, you can throw Isaiah in there. I mean, there's just a lot of guys. It's going to be a hard day when you have to pick the best player, because this league is so talented.
Thanks, Kevin.
We'll go now to J.P. Pelsman with the Bergen Record.
Hi, Kevin. How you doing?
Good, JP. What's up?
Hey, I just want to ask you, I know we've asked you this before, but there's just so much talk right now, about your team and the NCAAs and everything. And you've talked about embracing the process. How do you kind of, keep your guys from getting caught up in all that noise? How do you kind of keep your guys, just on the path and just, thinking about the next game and not about bracketology and all that?
Harder than you think, JP. With Twitter and all that stuff, 'cause I walked in the locker room. What's today? Thursday. So Tuesday night we came back to watch film and dinner, and the guys were talking about it. So I'm not trying not to. I want them to understand where we are, and I want them to understand, that we are in a good situation, that every game's a big game, but we still need to just we still got to focus on getting better and playing at a high level. I'm not, we're at the point in the season now where, with Twitter and, things on Fox, things on ESPN that, you can't stay away from it. And I don't want them to, but at the same time, we're not going to get caught up. We're not going to get caught up into it, because we're too young, and we have too many games left to say, okay, like last night's loss hurt, but it's not the end of the world. I mean, Butler's a tremendous team. So you have to understand that when, we need to win some games, and we're going to lose some games, but, we just got to keep improving. And that's what I liked about that 4-game stretch that we just had, was that, for the most part, 4 to 5 games, we played at a pretty good level. And, if we can stay on that path, that's going to work out for us.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thanks, JP.
Yeah. Kevin, we have to move on. We appreciate the time, as always. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thanks. Now we are moving on to Marquette and Coach Steve Wojciechowski. Marquette, another team that played last night. They were victorious over Providence in double overtime, 96-91. And that makes Marquette's record 5-7 in the league, 16-9 overall. They're at home again on Saturday against Creighton. Coach, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us a brief comment on last night's win and then your thoughts on Saturday's game.
Yeah, we were a part of an unbelievable game last night against an outstanding Providence team. I was really proud of our team's toughness and grit and resiliency. I think we're getting better, and I thought we showed a tremendous will to win last night, and we had big plays by a lot of different guys at crucial moments. So hopefully it's a win we can build off of. We have tremendous respect for Creighton. I think they're one of the most underappreciated teams in the country. Their point guard, Watson's one of the best point guards in the United States, and obviously really well coached and balanced team. It's going to be a very difficult challenge.
Questions for Coach Steve Wojciechowski? Hit *1 on your telephone, please.
We'll now take a question from David Woods with the Indianapolis Star.
Yes, Coach. This was, I guess, just last weekend, but I wonder what you noticed in the play of Butler's Keelan Martin. He's really made some pretty significant advances from his freshman season to how he's playing now as a sophomore.
Well, he's a terrific player, and like you said, I mean, he's made tremendous improvements from his freshman year to his sophomore year. He's such a dynamic scorer. I mean, he can score in so many different ways inside the paint, beyond the three-point line, off the dribble. He's got a big, strong body, very versatile, and I think he competes very hard. He's certainly one of the more impressive players in our league.
Thank you.
We'll now take our question from Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Coach.
Good morning.
Hey, obviously Henry Ellison entered the league with a lot of big expectations placed upon him. Could you talk a little bit about how he's handled all that as he's kind of navigated his way through this first season?
Yeah, I think, Henry embraces responsibility. I mean, he's a guy that we've given a lot of responsibility to as a young player. He's the top of everybody's scouting report, and I think he's embraced it, which, all the really good players that I've been around embrace the responsibility of being a team's best player. He's a kid who's had a terrific freshman year. He still can get better. But his attitude and approach has been terrific, and he's had really a terrific freshman year.
I guess last night Ben Thiel from Providence threw a big-time performance at you. I guess when you look at him, where's big areas of improvement in his game that you notice?
Well, I mean, obviously last year as a freshman you saw his potential. He's got a big, strong body. He's really good around the basket. I think the thing that he's done this year is expand his game where he is a threat from the perimeter as well. And he's getting fouled a lot, and I think anytime you see guys put up big scoring games, a big key to that is getting to the foul line. And I think he's getting fouled a lot, and his perimeter jump shot has improved.
When you say Creighton's one of maybe the most underappreciated teams in the country, what do you base that on?
I base it off when I watch them.
Okay.
I watch them play, and I watch, you watch the other teams around the country play. I think they have a dynamic point guard. I think they're really, really good in all positions. They understand their roles. They compete very well, and they're obviously tremendously well coached. And I think they're an outstanding team. When I watch them play, I see an NCAA tournament team.
Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Final question for Coach Wojciechowski.
We'll now take a question from Eugene Evans with College Sports Overload.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, this year, Henry Ellison's gotten a lot of attention. I know it's last night, and Cheatham stepped up big time. How about his progression going from the start of the year up until right now?
Well, I think Haney has quietly had an outstanding freshman year, and certainly Henry deserves all the attention he gets. But one of the things I think has gotten lost a little bit, I think Haney's had a terrific freshman year. We've asked him to play a lot of at times at the point guard position, a position he's never played before. He's a big time kid. He can really get to the basket and finish, and I think he's going to be a tremendous college basketball player.
All right, and then a quick follow-up question. Obviously, if you guys played long minutes last night, will there be any changes in terms of preparation for the Creighton game as a result of the win?
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be able to have a long, drawn-out practice today. I mean, I think we have to get familiar with who Creighton is as a team. I think we have to learn from some of the things that we did well last night, some of the things that we need to improve on. But in terms of physicality and a lot of stuff on the court, we're not going to be able to do very much based on, the level of game we just played in late last night.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Steve, we have to move on. We appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are moving on to Georgetown and Coach John Thompson III. The Hoyas' last game was on Monday, a win at home over St. John's. On Saturday, they're at Providence, noon tip on Fox. The Hoyas right now 7-5 in the league, 14-11 overall. John, thanks for joining us on the call. If you can give us a comment or two of your team's play of late, and if you could address the matchup with Providence.
Well, we needed desperately, I guess maybe like everyone in the league, needed a win the other day, and I liked where our guys came out and played against St. John's. But as you look around this league, you have to quickly forget about that and move on. Every game is important, and we head up to Providence to play, obviously, against a well-coached team, tough team that has two of the better players in our country on their team.
Questions for Coach Thompson? Hit *1 on your telephone, please. The operator will introduce you.
We'll take our first question from Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Coach. I was wondering if you could talk about, the kind of the gridlock in the middle of the conference right now. There's just 2 wins separating 6 teams from 3rd place to 8th place. Can you talk about, how fun it's going to be maybe the last 3 weeks of this season? Because it's like night in and night out. It's, one great game after another.
Well, I think it speaks to the strength of the conference and the obvious parity in the conference, where you have a lot of really good teams. And so, at the end of the day, someone's going to have to be 1, someone's going to have to be 10, but there's not much difference in between. And I think we're seeing that as night in, night out, we're knocking each other off.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll now take a question from John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach. Hope all is well. We are going across the league today and been asking different coaches. It's hard to believe the Big East tournament's only a matter of weeks away, and obviously you have to have many memories of going to Madison Square Garden. How special is it to you, that building, and to have the tournament there year in, year out? How important do you think that is, that the league is really at the center of the college basketball world?
It's other than the Final Four and participating in the Final Four, there's nothing like the Big East tournament that weekend. Nothing like the Big East tournament. That week in New York is something that's truly special. And the environment in the building is electric all week. Playing on that Saturday night, it doesn't get much better than that.
And could you share any memories that you have of your father and just through the years, the Big East tournaments, maybe, just anything that comes to mind when I say that?
I have a lot. What's probably jumps to the forefront is watching Jeff Green in 2007 just put on a show all week, and then carry us to the Final Four.
Thanks a lot.
Are there other questions for Coach Thompson? Hit *1 on your telephone, please. Coach, looks like we're good. We appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And we are a minute or two away from Coach Chris Mack of Xavier, and we will be reaching out to him. If you haven't applied on here, I have
he's here.
That Chris Mack is in. Chris Mack is in from Xavier. Chris, thanks for joining us on the call. Your last game was a loss out of Creighton on Tuesday. You're on the road again at Butler, 9-3 in the league, 21-3 overall. If you could give us a brief comment on the Tuesday game out at Creighton, and then your thoughts on facing Butler.
Do I have to? You know, you
can move ahead to Butler if you want.
Well, we need to. You know, give credit to Creighton, and I said at the time, you know, great environment. It's a special place. You know, anytime you lose, you're disappointed, but I think you're even more disappointed when you feel like you lose and you don't play well. And so, you know, we've had games over the years past where it's like, hey, you gave everything you could. You were well prepared, played hard, but you lost. And despite, I thought, you know, Maurice Watson dominating the game and having as good a performance as there has been in the league this year, just disappointed on our end that we didn't play to the level that we're capable of. And when you do that in this league, they return no favors. So we have to turn our attention to a team that's playing very well. It's won 3 in a row, coming off a huge win last night at Seton Hall, a team that we have a lot of respect for, and it always comes down to 50-50 basketballs and rebounding and being tough-minded, and that's what we're going to be faced against on Saturday.
Questions for Coach Chris Mack. Hit *1 on your telephone, please.
We'll go to Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Chris.
Hey, Steve. Didn't you grill me enough on Tuesday night?
I was trying to be gentle.
Appreciate it.
Hey, obviously there's a lot of guys in this league playing at a very high level, but when you look at a guy like Providence's Ben Bentil, what impresses you about the improvements he's made in his game this year?
Well, just his versatility. He's more than capable on the low block, as we know. But you know, I think early on when he was shooting threes, you know, people probably question like, what's this guy doing out there? And you know, He's had some terrific nights behind the line. He gets to the foul line. He makes his free throws. You know, he's a tenacious rebounder. He just, like a lot of good players, when confronted with something that doesn't turn into a weakness of his, he's very versatile. He can play in a lot of different ways, and I think it makes it tough on opponents because you're not quite sure how to guard him.
Is he one of the hardest matchups in the league?
Well, probably for certain teams. It just depends probably on the strength of your team. But, yeah, I mean, he's a terrific player, and he's putting up monster numbers. And, again, because of how hard he plays and how relentless he is, he's always going to be a tough matchup.
Thanks, Chris. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
And we'll go to David Woods with Indianapolis Star.
Yes, good afternoon, Coach. I wonder if you could, elaborate on the growth of Trevin Blewett. I mean, he's obviously had a very good freshman year, but he's I guess apart from the Creighton game, has had just a terrific sophomore season. And kind of what have you noticed in his development?
Sure, David. I would say first off, confidence is a tremendous thing. And a year ago, Trayvon lost his confidence as the season went along. It's a long year for every freshman. And then, you couple that with the fact that we went on a foreign trip right before his freshman year, and so the season became incredibly long for all of our freshmen a year ago. But I think, like most players, they get better from their freshman to sophomore year through that experience. Trayvon has been, as you mentioned, up until last game, which I'd like to think is just a blip on the radar. He's been as consistent as any player that I've coached. He's been a tough matchup for opponents. We play him, in a four-guard lineup that I think presents some challenges for teams to match up. And because of Trey's versatility and his strength and his IQ, he's able to defend most teams' power forwards in a way that other versatile fours or stretch fours or perimeter players can't, and that's allowed us to be able to play that way.
Sounds like he was quite a scorer in high school, and he's had some good moments, but it sounds like he influences the game in a lot more than just that.
Well, his presence on the floor, it really spaces things for his teammates. Against Marquette, we really want to take advantage of the matchup with Ellenson on Trayvon. Trayvon ends up with 8 assists and no turnovers, leads the team in scoring, and I just think that he's a handful, and he's playing with a lot of confidence. He has deep range on his jump shot. He knows how to use his body because he's not blessed with overwhelming athleticism, but he has a really high IQ for the game and a really good feel for how to put the ball in the basket.
Thank you very much.
Sure, Dave.
We'll go now to Mike Hopkins with PCBB 1917.
Hey, Coach, how are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks. Just looking at Jalen Reynolds in the Providence game a few weeks ago, one of his better games in the league so far. What did you see from him that night, and what are you going to be looking for on Tuesday when Providence comes out to Cincinnati?
Well, we've got another game before that, but Jalen is a guy that when he plays well, our team really feeds off of his energy. And I think if you look at the history of Jalen's career, he's always played better as the season's gone along. And he's just when he's getting the ball in the post and he's feeling confident, he can score on anybody. And at times he's lost his confidence this year. I think the ball went in the basket early on in the game against Providence. I think that made him feel really good about when he caught it in there, and then we got a couple of looks for him against their zone. And again, I think when he's playing well, our team is an awfully different team.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
We'll now take a question from John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach, hope all is well. I know there's still a lot of basketball to be played, but it's only a matter of weeks now before the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden. And you know what? You already, while your time in the league hasn't been long, you've already formed a little bit of history there. I was looking back at last year and remember your first press conference after your quarterfinal win that people had a Butler-Georgetown semifinal, and you changed that and then eventually went to the championship game. You guys showed last year, it's anybody's ball game when you go over to the Garden. What comes to mind when you think about that stage and just the field, the tournament?
Just the excitement. The Big East tournament has historically been the best, arguably the best conference tournament in college basketball. I don't think anything's changed. The crowds are always electric. There's just a mystique about playing in the Garden, with the history of all the great players and great entertainers that have been in the building over the years. And so, our guys are no different. They get juiced up to play in that environment, heavy stakes. And as you're trying to win a conference championship, we were one game short, but I wouldn't say it's anybody's game because Villanova is obviously, the reigning champion. They've played extremely well the last few years that we've been in the league. And I think they're the team that you have to knock off in order to come away with Big East champion.
Do you think that there's an interesting dynamic to last year? You were sort of in the role of the team. You're in that 3-6 game, and everybody's maybe thinking about those top tier teams. And yes, Villanova is the first one that comes to mind. But is there a role change here for you this year that when you go into the Garden? Now you're absolutely the hunt to being a top 10 team.
No, because we're not slotted anywhere. We're not counting any chickens before they're hatched. We still have 6 games left in conference regular season play, and to think that everything's in cement would be foolish on our end. And we have plenty of games and plenty of opportunity ahead of us before we get to MSG that. We're not going to count any chickens.
Thanks so much. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Anything else for Coach Chris Mack, please? Chris, looks like we're good. Thanks for joining us as always. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, Xavier's game is at Butler on Saturday, and that's the second game of our Fox doubleheader. The two games are Georgetown at Providence at noon and Xavier at Butler at 2:30, and those are Eastern times. We are dialing out for Coach Jay Wright. If you have not applied for tournament credentials, the way to do that is go to our online link, www.sportssystems.com, double S in the middle, S on the end, .com/Big East to apply for Big East tournament credentials. We are dialing out for Coach Jay Wright. Villanova's last game was at DePaul on Tuesday. Villanova won the game 86-59. And as people on this call know, they are ranked number one in both polls this week. 21-3 overall, 11-1 in the Big East. Hosting St. John's on Saturday at Wells Fargo, 8 p.m. tip. CBS Sports Network is carrying the game on Saturday night. And we have Coach Jay Wright on the line. Jay, thanks for joining us on the call. Your last game was a win at DePaul. You're getting ready to play St. John's. If you can give us maybe a brief comment on the DePaul win and your thoughts on facing the Red Storm.
Thanks, Johnny. A good effort for us against DePaul. I thought Monday started with everyone excited and a lot of attention about us being number one, and all at the same time they were trying to get the team prepared for DePaul, and you don't know how they're going to respond until you play the game. And we played the game, and I thought our guys were really focused, and I thought DePaul came out really strong, and we handled it. And then back here this week now preparing for the Johnnies on Saturday, who we had a tough game with at the Garden. I really respect what they're doing. They've played hard, even though they've lost a lot of games here, but they never quit in a game, and they've had some really good performances on the road, like at Xavier. So we know if Mussini gets it going and Duran Johnson gets it going, they could beat anybody. So I think our guys are pretty focused preparing for them.
Questions for Coach Jay Wright, hit *1 on your telephone. The operator will introduce you.
We'll now go to Sean Brennan with BigEast.com.
Hey, Jay.
Hey, Sean. How are you, buddy?
Good, man. Hey, congrats on the whole number one thing.
Thanks.
Well, would you say being the number one team now, is it more pressure or is it more pride, that you guys play with now? And how's the reaction been on campus since the announcement?
That's interesting. I haven't heard anybody mention the pride part of it, and I didn't know how we would react because there is a lot of excitement on campus, and we found out Monday. We were on campus. We were trying to get ready for DePaul. We took Sunday off after being on the road, and I think when we played that game against DePaul, I think I saw more pride than pressure, and I think it's a great way to put it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks, Jeff.
You got it, buddy.
We'll take our next question from Steve Pivovar with Omaha World Herald.
Good morning, Jay.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, you've obviously seen a lot of guys make big strides from a year-to-year basis in this league. Where do you rank what Ben Bentil from Providence has done from last year to this year?
Wow, yeah, that's the guy. We recruited him out of high school, and actually the progress that he made from his senior year in high school to his freshman year, I thought was really significant when we played him when he was a freshman. And then from freshman year to now has even surpassed that. The guy that comes to mind for us that's made that kind of progression has been Daniel Chefu year to year, but Bentil, I think, really the best of anybody in the country by far. To be the leading scorer in this league in your sophomore year is incredible, and I think it is a real credit to him and their staff.
he exhibited some nice parts to his game last year, but where do you see like a quantum leap forward for him?
I think he's improved in all areas, but the biggest impact I think he's had is his ability to hit threes and free throws.
Okay.
You know, he can hit some daggers from three, but when you have your 5-man at the end of the game that can get open against the press and then just drill every free throw, that's incredible. And those two areas have made the biggest impact, I think.
Appreciate it, Jay. Good luck the rest of the week.
Thank you, Steve.
Our next question will come from Eric Watkins with ViewSports.com.
Good afternoon, Coach.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. I respect you have a game, obviously with St. John's, a big one on Saturday, but I wanted to look forward to the Temple game a little with you, given that you were the assistant or AV8 and Villanova went and played number 1 Temple. And McGonigal, you had that big midnight game down at Temple against Cheney early in your tenure at Nova. What do you think the atmosphere will be like potentially with your team being as high as number 1 ranked, and with the Jalen Rick Brunson situation? How do you think Jalen will be prepared to handle that atmosphere?
Well, as you know, we have to prepare for St. John's, so we really can't think about that yet. The reference you made to 88 is interesting because it would probably be comparable to that. You know, that game was incredible. And I was an assistant. I remember that. That was just an unbelievable atmosphere. But for right now, I mean, I'm sure Sunday we'll all start thinking about that. But we got to really prepare for St. John's right now.
Understood. With that as your answer, how do you view being ranked number 1 as being a good preparation for potentially being the number 1 seed in the NCAA?
I hope, Eric, that there is definitely pressure that comes with it. There's a lot more attention. So I'm hoping if we can, stay in this spot for a little while, if we do get that type of pressure in the NCAA tournament, that, we're kind of used to it, when you're a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament, you do get this kind of special attention, and it's hitting you for the first time. If we had some experience with that, and it helps us, I'd be happy about it.
All right. Thanks a lot, Coach.
You got it, E.
We'll take our next question from Dan Russo with Capital News Service.
Hi, Coach. How are you today?
Hi, Dan.
I'm just wondering, there were reports about a preseason scrimmage between your team and the Maryland Terrapins, and I was wondering just the fact that you guys are ranked 1-2 right now, with a potential tournament matchup down the road. Is there anything that you took from that matchup that you might be able to use down the season, and just maybe give some insight onto them being ranked number 2 in both polls right behind you guys?
That's funny. That's a great question. That game, we knew they were going to be really good, and that's why we wanted to scrimmage them. It was kind of our plan in like playing Oklahoma, playing Virginia, and all our Big 5 games. So that was part of our plan, and they came in here, and we were the size, and they just getting Suleiman for the first time, but they came in here, and it was an unbelievable scrimmage. Maybe one of the greatest games no one ever saw. It was awesome. They played great. We played great. I think we were a little bit more prepared. They had new guys. It was Diamond Stone's first game, and Suleiman, first game with them. So you could tell, as good as they were in that game, we came out of that saying, wow, these guys could win the national championship. It was a great scrimmage for both of us. It was really cool. It would be amazing if we ever got to meet up again.
Okay, and have you seen, those new guys, have you seen them, the team kind of gel as the season's gone on? I don't know if you paid much attention to them or not, but have you seen them kind of grow more as a team and, bounce off each other better on the court?
Incredibly, and I think we probably have a better perspective than anybody because we saw them, that scrimmage was their first time playing together, and they were really good. but where they are now compared to where they were in that scrimmage is light years. Again, it was Diamond Stone's first time playing, and he was good, but you could just tell, man, when this kid starts getting coached by these guys and is playing with these guys, he's going to be really good. And as I said, same thing with Suleiman. Also, the other power forward, the transfer from Georgia Tech, that was his first game. So you could just tell all those guys when they got going together were going to be great. And we do watch them because we played them, and we see a significant improvement in chemistry bond that just makes them a great team.
Okay, and would you like to play him again? And who won in the scrimmage?
I would only like to play them again if it was in the national championship game. Other than that, I would not be interested in seeing them again.
And who won the scrimmage, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, we did like quarters and end of game situations and all kinds of stuff. So there's no way we did 1 minute left in the game, Maryland's ball down 2.
Right.
So we did all that stuff.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, Coach.
You got it.
We'll take one more question for Coach Jay Wright.
We'll go now to John Fanta with the Big East Digital Network.
Hey, Coach. Hard to believe that the Big East tournament, hard to believe the Big East tournament is only a matter of weeks away, and obviously you have many memories of it. I've been going around the league today asking different coaches what comes to mind when they think about playing at the Mecca every year, and they said that there's just simply nothing better than it. What comes to mind when you think about that week and the pageantry of the Big East tournament at the Garden?
Well, a lot of things come to mind. From my years at Hofstra, it was my favorite place to go as a fan. I loved going in and watching all the games, and my biggest memory was, in '95 when Villanova won the Big East championship there. But I always loved going in as a fan, and everybody in the city, the vibe of all the alumni from all the schools in the city. You could just feel it in Manhattan, just the electricity in the whole city. And then when you walk into the Garden for Big East tournament time, there's just no feeling like that anywhere in basketball. And then the only thing that supersedes that is us winning it last year, which, having been a fan of it my whole life and then being in it and win it, that was an incredible feeling to be standing on the half court at Madison Square Garden after the game.
And just to add to that quickly, that was sort of everybody's looking at Josh Hart this year, and I've heard people saying, okay, he's one of the most underrated players in the country. But I think you got to look back to that week. He gets named the sixth man in the conference, and he was so much more than that in the tournament, becoming the tournament MVP. How excited are you? He performed on that stage once. He's clearly comfortable in it, along with Arch and company. It's got to be exciting to you to think about your veterans and how important that could be. Yeah,
when it comes to tournament play and playing in the Garden, there's just something about the Garden. If you haven't played there before, it just gets you. The excitement just gets you, and it can affect your game. But when you go in there with veterans that have been there before, that really does help. And I hope our juniors and seniors can be really comfortable there and play it at their best, because that's what it's going to take to win that tournament.
Good luck Saturday night.
Thank you.
Jay, thanks as always for the time. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Johnny.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us on the call today. Again, our call in 2 weeks will be on Friday, February 26th. You can use the same call-in number as today's number, but we're going on to Friday because we have a couple games on that Thursday. So thanks for joining us on the call, and we will talk to you soon.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.
We will talk to you soon.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.
We will talk to you soon.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.
We will talk to you soon.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.
We will talk to you soon.
This concludes today's conference. Thank you for your participation.